That's not the correct overlay. Okay. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Orange Card, Blue Card podcast. I'm your man, Sam Tate. I am joined by the first ever Pro Hero National Champion, Barrett Bryant. Barrett, thanks for being here with me.
Absolutely, man. I'm super excited. Not only did you get to commentate almost all of my games that I got to play in Vegas, you're already a good friend of mine. I mean, we deck tech a lot and we play a lot of games against each other. So 100%, I'm super glad to be here.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I had to make sure I'm unmuted. I do this thing every podcast where one of us is muted. It's a little ace maneuver special, but correct me if I'm wrong. But the deck that you played, you also worked with Tamron Cardwell a lot on that deck. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. You're definitely not wrong. The running joke for the weekend was that Tam was 90% of the deck and I was 10% of the deck playing it. That's not 100% accurate. The background for the deck is that I was playing Tokoyami for about 2 months leading up to Nationals. I probably played Fire for a month, and then I swapped over to Chaos, like set 3 movement going forward. And honestly, the reason I built it was not necessarily for me to play, but for me to play test against my locals and my good friends that were like, I need to beat my head against hyper aggro. And I said, let me build Tokoyami and I'll just do it. And then I got to playing it for so long that I was like, this just might be the call. This just might be the call to play. And that was pretty much how we circled on to Chaos, which put a little bit of defensive, as I talked with you like on the desk a lot of the times while we were there, that like it had a little bit of defense, but still being a hyper aggro deck that I got to still cater to my kind of play style and then still be able to turn 3 people. And so that was kind of how we settled there. So yes, deck teched it with Tam. I deck teched it with Bromley even. Like I was play testing against Bromley and like he would give me a little bit of feedback and like, do you think this is a great card? Do you think this is not? I tested it against Kyle. I tested it against Nathan DeWalt. Like there's a bunch of people that have had their hands against this deck before I even brought it. My own local player that topped, his name's Axel. He's had rammed his head against it enough times, and a lot of the playtesting I did with him on the Monday before the tournament, I was kind of this final version that I ended up on. So a lot of people made some last few changes that last week for sure.
This sounds weirdly similar to Tim Keefe's story from the first regional license exam where he's like, well, I put the bird together to figure out what it would look like for testing, and then all of a sudden we're landing on this deck, right? So what was the meme? It's like first major event of a new set and Tokoyami winning it, name a more iconic duo.
I think it's just a safety pick, right? Like the term that we like to use, I feel like, is you must be this tall to ride this ride. And I very much think Tokoyami is that like stress test of if you want to play a control or defensive deck, like I like to play with a Racerhead, you must be able to defend against this turn 2, turn 3 aggression, or you're just not going to make it against other aggro decks.
Right. And we're going to retread a lot of ground. If you guys didn't get a chance, definitely go back while the VOD is still up. Watch the official broadcast because Barrett goes through a lot of great detail, gives a lot of great insight about the deck. Talked about a little bit on Tuesday, I'm sure, with the Brewing with the Boys. You've got more podcasts coming out, I'm sure. I know at least the Universus Academy guys are getting to you. I think Total Justice Gaming, right? We talked a little bit before going live. And so I want to give you guys a little bit of a different perspective. I want to do a little more deep dive on the Barrett Bryant that you may or may not know. Ask a few more questions than just the My Hero specifically ones. And if you guys have any questions, whether it's YouTube comments or live here on Twitch chat, feel free to ask and we'll try to get to them, fit them in as we go. But first off, I want to ask, because we're all card gamers here, and we've all played more than one card game, I'm sure, except maybe Mark Tyner, although maybe he's got around to that by now. But I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite card game of all time? You're not obligated to say Universus.
I would say in my most recent history, I'm going to say Universus and UFS, the fighting system. I think the game mechanics are just so strong. But for the sake of a unique story, I'm going to do something a little different. That's my current love, and I think I'll always love this game no matter what happens to it. But for the longest time, if someone asked me this question, it is a dead card game called Luck and Logic. And it did not last for very long.
It's not.
It's a Bushiroad game. These are the same people that made Future or Super or what Future
Card Fight,
Buddy Fight,
Vanguard, and Buddy Fight. It's all the fights.
and then Weisschwartz, which was the one that I had previously played competitively and traveled for. Yeah, Luck and Logic, the reason why I loved it is because it felt very mixture of Pokemon, and I want to say, I don't know why I can't think of it, but like L5R, was that the one where like you attacked their gates and like you flipped them over and they had effects? I couldn't, like, that was how you won. You had to break all of your opponent's gates, right?
I believe that's the one. I know L5R, you had like multiple win conditions built in. Like you had like reputation and honor and stuff.
So Luck and Logic, it felt like Pokemon in the sense that the deck building process was the hardest part of the game. In the sense that your puzzle will work as long as you have the right pieces, and then you can throw in your own spicy tech pieces to play against specific things in the meta. And when you like summoned your stronger creatures, you searched your deck for them. You couldn't whiff. You got to play what you put in your deck. And so like that was the logic part of the game, and the luck part of the game was when you attacked your opponent's gates, there were 6 of them, you won by breaking all 6 of their gates. There was a randomness aspect because there was a separate deck for those gates, and some of them were just like game losing or game winning if you hit them. But it was not enough for me to like discredit the game competitively, and I really loved that game. Sadly, it only lasted for 5 sets in North America, and I still have all my cards for it because I think it's a ton of fun. And one day it'll be like my WoW TCG game that I teach somebody and be like, "Oh, I'll just play it because it's my favorite." But that's probably the answer to that question.
It'll be your versus cube that you bring to play with Chris Smith.
Yeah, absolutely.
Low key, long-term goal is super tangent. Long-term goal for me is to actually start a dead card game club where everybody just has like multiple decks of like the game that they love.
Right.
So you only have to have one. So it's like you're the Luck and Logic guy, he's the Versus guy, he's the WoW guy, he's the Raw Deal guy, and we just meet up and decide like which ones to play and shit.
I have Dragonborn decks too, which is another dead Bushiroad card game. And so like I have like 3 Dragonborn decks that if somebody's just like, you want to learn how to play, I got these decks right here, we can just do it.
Awesome.
So
yeah, that's got to be like a weekly club or something with TTS, but we could get on dead card games forever. So if that's your favorite card game of all time, that might be, related to this next question I have, which is your favorite trading card of all time, your favorite card in any game. This one's tough because there's a bazillion cards printed every year.
Actually, no. I think this one's easier because I think I am going to pick a UFS card.
Okay.
I think my favorite card of all time will actually be the first card that I ever play-setted in UFS when I started playing, and it's Prepare to Fight from the Street Fighter set. And the reason why is because it is inherently, when you look at it, it is a defensive card. But if you're smart enough in your deck building process and in certain matchups, it's also an offensive card. And the reason that is because the enhance on that card says that we both shove a foundation into our card pool, which is like, give 1 speed to all my attacks. But it's also bad for you too, right? Because I'm shoving 1 into my pool as well. And so like, I can't tell you how many times when I played that card competitively that enhance was a reason that I won a game, and because it inherently was also just a defensive action card, it also won me games defensively. That card is the epitome of like how I love to play the game. Here's an aggressive ability or here's a defensive ability, but it can sometimes be used the other way. So I think that's for sure like what got me into the game, and like that plus reversals or being able to block it and stop on multiple copies is very much how I want to be able to play both sides for sure.
I definitely think I've been hurt more by that enhance now that you mention it
yeah,
than I ever have by blocking.
Because every time someone uses it on you, you're like, oh, this actually matters math-wise now.
Yeah.
And it's like almost sometimes that one piece, because it's more than just debuilding 1, right? If all your foundations are ready, it's debuilding like 2, because that was a card you would have tapped. And so it definitely messed with a lot of people's math enough to kill them. Yeah. And you got to be smart with it.
You can go into a turn where you're like, you can't block with anything. That means no reversal, yin and yang, no precise blow, no breakers for stuff that My Hero people would be familiar with. But then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? Fuck your card pool. Just fuck it all up. So I'm a huge fan of that card. Also, your champ card, I believe, is a reference to that card as well.
Absolutely.
Right?
My artwork and my symbols are, you can always play Prepare to Fight under my character, and the artwork of the ghosts in the background is the same artwork of Chun-Li, and the ghosts behind, like, her journey or her path to that point in the game, basically. So in my card, the ghosts in my background were the people that I had to defeat, or the way that I like to describe it are like my mentors or people that I had to overcome in my journey of getting that character card in 1 year of playing the game. And so there's people like Jeremy Ray, Mason Johnson, and Jacob Johnson are all on that card because they were all a part of that journey.
Does anyone in Omaha call them Johnson and Johnson? Is that like a thing, or?
No, it's just Big and Little Johnson for sure.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. So next up, I guess that segues. I did a really good job on this list actually. Any major wins in any other CCGs? We know that you're a national champion now in MHA, and you're a national champion in Universus. But what about any other card games that you've played competitively?
Sadly, no. I was historically known for like getting second or third place in a lot of things that I did, but especially in Bushiroad games, which I've traveled for competitively before getting into Universus and UFS. Second and third place doesn't get you diddly squat in those games. You get to stand up there for the photo, but only first place got the invite to go to Japan and get the regional. So I never got to go to Japan for that invite. But actually in Dragonborn, I got third place at one of the regionals for it, which again I was aiming to get first so that I could get an invite to go to Japan. But so third place doesn't get you anywhere. Weisschwartz, I made a top 8 cut for their team style event that they normally hold during the spring, which in that game, in my opinion, is pretty hard to do because there is a higher luck variance in that game, and so making a top cut for Weisschwartz is kind of a good achievement because you got to run kind of hot. So, but other than that, I really didn't hit my stride until I started playing Universus for sure.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna switch it up just a little bit here because I see we have a question about the weekend in the chat that I've got on my list here too, which is any hard matchups you played against Barrett. Well, I guess Barrett referring to you, not that you played against yourself, but what was your hardest matchup of the weekend?
My hardest matchup, and not that I wish it was on stream, because I don't, because it was very stressful for me, but my hardest matchup was actually in top 16 against David Pena. That guy is a phenomenal card game player. I know he's kind of really gotten into it with My Hero specifically, and I told him when he sat down across from the table from me, I said, look who it is, Mr. Always Topping, Never Stopping. Like, I said that to his face, and he got a good chuckle out of it, but he has topped every event that he has gone to, and he's not even like playing the same deck, right? He's changing it up and adapting and showing out, and having actually played against him in that top cut situation where it's untimed, he is very analytical. He is an up and coming Kevin Broberg, like for sure. I'm so excited that because I won, I get to go to Worlds, but he's already going because of the points that he's got, right? So I'm excited that I get to see him and potentially play against him professionally in a competitive sense, because that guy made me work for it, for sure. And he was that last hurdle, because after that, top 8, top 4, and even the finals were a lot easier for me, my deck-wise. But it was against his Kirishima 2 deck that it came down to my last attack on my last possible attack turn in game 3, and it was like basically exact math. Like he made me work for it for sure. Aside from that, during Swiss, I'll give a big shout outs. I cannot remember his name, and I'm so sorry. I guess I could pull it up on the app, but he was playing a Cementos deck. Ooh. And not only was it a harder matchup for me because it's a 5-hander and I'm trying to like turn 2 you, and 33 life is a lot for me to get through, but I lost game 1 winning the die roll, and it was very scary because like I started the day with a loss, and I was like telling myself that I'm not allowed to lose another one, or I'm going to constantly be in this like struggle at like X and 2. And after losing game 1, I really had to kick it into gear because I had to win the next 2. Luckily I did. I got there. I just had to play a little bit slower, like think about my choices, being down a game. But for sure, like Cementos, the guy, I really wish I knew his name so I could give him a shout out. But he played damn good for sure.
Yeah, the hard for me personally, the hardest part about Tokoyami is you'll grip some hands that are like not the best ever, but boy, do they look like they do the job.
Yeah.
Like there's some risky ass hands where you're like, okay, if they check 1-3, they just lose, right?
The scarier ones are like when you also have a Petty Squabble built, or one of those cards is a Frigid, and you're like, what could happen this turn? Who knows? And so you just go for it and start figuring it out. And like sometimes they come into your hand, and sometimes you're like, we made a bad idea.
Yeah, knowing when to commit, still definitely a big part of every deck, pretty much.
Right.
So you played a lot of games in untimed rounds. What was the longest game of the weekend? Because when I saw you on stream, you were scooping people up lickety split.
Yeah, I think the stream situation. Every time I was on stream, it was faster. I know specifically against Keenan and Tim Keefe, like they were 2-0s as well. But during Swiss, I played against Jacob Johnson, and we went to a game 3, and it was pretty close to time. But like we even had an extra minutes or whatever because of the stream table. But again, I think that David Pena match for sure was the longest one. Luckily, it was an untimed top cuts thing. But like we moved straight into the next round because they were waiting on. Like I'm pretty sure they were waiting on David and I because we had the longest match by far.
Okay.
It was very much. I'm the higher seed. I get to go first. I built to like 15 foundations in game 1. I just couldn't find the gas. And so I was like, okay, I'll play solid defense. We'll eventually get there. Had to flip my deck twice. Still couldn't get there. He eventually found a great line, and I died. And I was like, okay, cool. Lost game 1, again, going first. Game 2, again, another nightmare situation. I had to build to like 12 foundations and got just into enough deadlock where he was at as well that I found enough gas and I was able to push through, and I got him in game 2, and then we went into game 3, and it even still lasted a little bit longer. I maybe went to like 7 or 8 foundations, but what kind of really got me there is that he had a really weak build 1 or a turn 1 build, and I was just able to get a little stronger advantage so that by the time that he had gotten to 8 or 9 foundations, it didn't really matter. And then eventually he went into deadlock, and it led to the kill turn where I played like an Ice Storm and responded with a bunch of basic trainings, easily excited, in deadlock enhanced, got it really fast, and he had to deal with it either by using Kirishima or tapping almost everything to block it. And eventually it led down to this line where like I was exact on math, like I said, and it was for sure the longest match.
Nice. And then, of course, the next question is going to be the shortest game you played over the weekend.
It might have been Keenan Meadows and I's match. It was for sure probably that one. It was just, I'm sure his deck was phenomenal, and I hope that he had played on stream at some other point during the tournament.
If you get a chance, watch the Kyle Wright game. It's one of the most phenomenal games, just like overall, I think.
And the reason I say that is because I'm sure his deck was really cool and really good because Keenan himself is a phenomenal player. But man, he did not get to showcase his deck against me at all. He just had, so he was the higher seed. He was the only person in a higher seed I played against in the top gauntlet, and he built 3 on turn 1 in game 1, and I built 6, and then it didn't go well for him. And then yes, game 2, again he goes first and built 3, and I built 5 because I failed my 6th thing, and it was a series of unfortunate events for him. I had a breaker block like in that second, like it was not meant to be for his deck in that game. And so I even wish at some point, like even when I played against Tim Keefe, like I wish that we kind of had gone. There's a part of me that like wishes that Tim Keefe didn't miss lethal. Or Keenan had a really good build one of those games so that we could see a real like game 3 like real nail biter, because like that is the epitome of this game and like quality Universus card game. And I did it because of the deck I was playing. I just really punished people that didn't do and build well, so like like sorry but not sorry kind of thing. But that was for sure the shortest one against Keenan Meadows.
It's definitely one of the scariest decks to not build well against, for sure.
Yeah.
Asui kind of has to draw the sheer volume. Tokoyami can kind of do both, and so it's Asui's not gonna get as many options just from having like 2 or 3 attacks. So, when did you start playing Universus?
I can actually. So, like I said, with the Prepare to Fight, I started when the Street Fighter set came out. So I want to say that was 2017.
It was either late 2016 or early 2017.
I think it was. You ready? I think it was mid 2017 because my competitive journey for Universus was like, I went to that pre-release event in Omaha, Nebraska, playing with people like Miles Tyler and like Legendary Wolf Games, and I learned the card game, was invested in it, said I would travel for it, and basically my first competitive event was Nationals of 2017 in Atlanta.
Okay.
And I played Mega Man 3, and I got third place
Tight.
I got third place at my first real competitive Universus event, and then 1 year later came back and won 2018 Nationals, which is why at the bottom of my card people had coined me the Rookie of the Year that year, because it took me 1 year and I came back and I took a character card, which is really cool. It's a very fun storyline that I have, and then I haven't won anything until just now. So it just took me 4 more years and COVID for that.
I was gonna say half of it was eliminated, but I think you're right. I always forget, like, my timeline is always way off because being in Vegas, we would like, so they used to give the promos out like early at the event. So like at the World Championships, they'll give out like promos of cards that will be in the next set, and then on top of that we would always just proxy everything as soon as it's revealed and just like play test because back then you didn't have like really cool weeklies. We didn't have like organized play circuit. It was just, when's the next PTC we're traveling to, let's jam games.
So part of that journey and like what had like become a meme for me was very much, so I went to that first Nationals in 2017. I got third place. And then post Street Fighter, Cowboy Bebop came out, and it changed a lot of the game. And then the first PTC I went to afterwards was at Las Vegas, actually, where Scott Sudman won. I got third place at that PTC playing, I was sandbagging into Jet, but I was playing a Punch and Judy deck that Omaha was bringing. Yeah, we were bringing Punch and Judy everywhere. Fast forward to that.
I got tricked into playing Yamato Man. I played that shitty Yamato Man deck.
Yikes.
Yeah. It was bad.
But like in hindsight, I should have just played like Mad Perot Punch and Judy at that event, because everybody was still sleeping on that deck until Atlanta brought it up, right?
Keenan Meadows, most likely.
And I was still kind of like, new player, I'm kind of scared to play 7-handers. I don't know if I trust my defense enough, kind of stuff like that. So I was playing a 6-hander into a 6-hander. Fast forward to that Worlds, where it was the first Cowboy Bebop Worlds, and I got third place at Worlds playing a version of Jet, Punch and Judy, where they gave out the Mortal Kombat characters as promos.
Yeah.
And so everybody was like, oh, Mortal Kombat, to then lead into that Nationals of 2018 with Mortal Kombat meta, where I won. Like, so again, it took a third place into a third place into a third place into finally getting a win at a major event.
Well, you kind of already answered my next question, which was your first PTC/competitive event. So I want to jump to a more MHA focused line of questions. We'll get back to Universus in the end, but I think a lot of people are here mostly for MHA stuff. And so who's your favorite character in the My Hero, or I guess who's your favorite character in My Hero, like the anime, if you have one?
Ooh, I'm very, not because I relate to him in any sense, but I like Todoroki as a character, specifically because like he has a little bit of the character development in like season 2 with like the tournament, the sports festival arc, right? Mm-hmm. And then you see even more development as he gets like more in, like you learn more about him and his father's relationship and his family, and then even fast forwarding further to like a more recent season without spoiling anything, of like accepting his heritage and overcoming that kind of things, and like he very much was just like, he doesn't seem like this character has a lot going on for him, but they sure are like telling a real storyline with him. And I think his quirk is super cool, right? Like being able to do both the ice and fire thing is very awesome. So I would probably say Todoroki is probably my favorite character in the My Hero anime. A close second would probably be.
You can say Mount Lady. It's okay. No one will call you.
I'm not gonna say Mount Lady.
You can say Mount Lady.
Probably All Might. It's again. He's probably got a lot of lore. He's a very iconic character, and I think if the show was not about Deku, right? The show's about him very much, and the journey of all One for All or whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called. All for One, whatever. Which one? I don't know. Whichever one it is. That's his.
One for All, I believe.
Yes.
It's One for All.
So All Might's a very cool character. Also, Chris Sabat. Like, how do you not? If you listen to dub, like, how do you not? Right.
It's cool to see like what would be the Goku become the mentor character. So I definitely get the appeal to the All Might. But then, what's your favorite character to play in MHA? Your favorite character card, if you will.
Eraserhead 1 for sure. And if anyone had seen me playing games either on Friday against most of the Jasco staff, and then even on Sunday after I had won the whole thing, I played a few pickup games with some buddies of mine because I had been busy obviously all day on Saturday and beginning of Sunday. I have an Eraserhead 1 deck that I have been playing since the set 1 had come out, because he's just the epitome of like wants to play very strong defense, and because he can also give 2 speed and draw 2 cards on demand, he can do that offense. And it's very much like I said about Prepare to Fight being my favorite card, of like a little bit of being able to do both is exactly how I want to play, and he definitely gets you there.
Love that. I'm a big fan of Eraserhead conceptually, but I struggle to maintain the hand size. I always find myself falling behind where it's like, okay, I need to erase 3 times and block 3 times, and getting to that position is very difficult.
Right.
That's why I think we don't see, like, he's always top of the tier list, right? Like content creators always love the idea of Eraserhead, but none of us seem to be very good at playing him. So maybe we'll catch you playing him at Worlds.
Maybe. And I'll be honest, the only reason I didn't play him actually at Nationals was because it was a 9-round tournament. And playing a more defensive deck like that in a very aggressive format, it was just scary. It was actually just very scary. And I think that I could have performed and played well playing Eraserhead because of how much reps I have on the character. I'm very confident in the set 3 Eraserhead deck. I really am. But I was so scared that I was going to have like even 60-minute rounds against some of these decks because I want to play this very good defense, and they're going to constantly try and wall break me. And so I told myself, no, we need to find a deck that actually can kill somebody on turn 2, turn 3, and then also play some okay defense. And that's how we settled, again, how we got there. But it was in the deck box. It was there. Right. I always had it in case I changed my mind on Saturday morning.
Yeah, and that's, there's something to be said. I come from fighting games where we have like matchup charts, and I would love to do that, but that would take, fighting games have like maybe 20 relevant characters on the high end. And as far as doing matchup charts for every possible character, you'd have to do all their symbols. That stuff's completely out of reach. But one of the things that fighting game players pay attention to is how technical a character is to play. How difficult is it? That matters a lot because, if you go into it and you say this guy's going to play perfect and win 9 out of 10 games, he will probably appear.
Play that guy.
He'll appear high on a tier list in a card game. But if you say this guy has to play perfect 9 out of 10 games and he'll beat you every time in a fighting game, they say, oh, well, you'll make that guy mess up. He'll drop something. He'll miss a reaction or something. So that physical input is something that they pay attention to a lot.
And that was very much my fear for a 9-round tournament, because even I've never played a Universus 9-round tournament, for how big this event was. And that just seems so terrifying to me because of exactly what you just said. I think I can play the character very well, but he is a difficult character. And with 19 vitality, and you mess up, if I played against Eraserhead or against Tokoyami decks, yes, I can turn off his character, which is a very strong thing to do, but like, you mess up once or hold one wrong block and you're just dead, right? You're just dead in this format, and it's so scary to go into a tournament thinking that. So I decided not to. And I'm glad I did, obviously, because
I think
we did well.
I think they did a pretty good job with Eraserhead overall. Because if everyone thinks he's so strong and yet like the results he gets are pretty narrow, I think that's really good. I think that's good for the game overall. That being said, maybe we'll have to talk to Corey Aguilar and get his experience from Nats. Maybe that's like his exact experience was, man, I did really good and then it just got really tough, because I've only ever played him in like the last couple rounds of a tournament, and I was like, man, he's smoking me. And by the time we got through the end of game 2, I got really lucky. By the time we got to the end of game 3, he was making all the choices, and I was just playing all my cards. So,
and I love Corey Aguilar. Character. I love him as a player. He played Spike 1 a lot during like Cowboy Bebop meta, and like Spike 1 is he's a 7-hander with very vanilla abilities, and so you have to play very good Universus to win and survive playing that kind of character. And if there's anyone that could do well in Eraserhead, it is him, and he has, right? Yeah. So in his history, so like for sure, I would love to know how he did and like how comfortable he felt, and or if he would do it again. Who knows if he's going to play him this weekend for the online Nats, right? That'd be very interesting to know.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny you bring up Spike 1. Scott Sumner kind of restored faith in defense at the start of the Cowboy Bebop aggro meta by playing like just the absolute most obnoxious wall deck you probably could right before it rotated. There's a lot of pieces to that deck that were legal pretty much for only that event. So, yeah, really interesting to see how everything ties together even years apart within this game. Yep. So that being said, what's your favorite symbol in MHA specifically, the MHA format?
In the MHA format?
Yeah, MHA. You can say Infinity, though. It's okay.
No, I'm not going to do that.
You can just include all the Infinity cards.
So it's weird because you asked me this, and I have a favorite symbol across Universus as a whole, but it's not the same answer I would give for you for the My Hero format. For the My Hero format, for the My Hero format, if it's set 3, Chaos. I know I played Chaos Bird, but there's a ton of other Chaos decks you can play that like shift towards this not 100% like huge aggro ball. The cards in Chaos now are so cool. They're so cool. But if I like sorted towards my Eraserhead thing right now, which is Void, I think Void has a lot of intricacies right now. I think it has some of the best defensive foundations, and at the same time, if you want to play an aggressive package, you get to play things like Void Kicks, which is very fast. They can hit very hard if you play a right package to go with it, and then on top of that, it has just the right amount of card draw to where you can push these incentives or push an aggro kind of game plan or push a defensive game plan, no matter how you want to do it. And then to even top it off, now with set 3, the discard cards from your hand kind of archetype has a lot more fruition in it. Things like Blood Moon Rending and even Somnambulism. Like actually being able to play this kind of like Void weapon discard deck. There's so many different things you can do now with the Void package, but the foundations I think are the peak of it for sure. So I would probably say the Void symbol right now.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely got like some of the best cards. It seems to always just be lacking like, I guess what Tam would call like flow cards. A lot of the time you have a super powerful effect, but it removes or it destroys or like
a lot of them flip.
A lot of them, yeah. All the ones I'm thinking of in my head are like the ones that leave your stage, but then the ones that get played flip. Like like I want a deck of that's just Taiyaki Fanatic, Night Watch. Mediator is one of my favorite cards actually, but it just doesn't keep up with a lot of the decks that can go for multiple turns. We will talk about UVS symbols later though, so
okay. Love it. Then I won't spoil it.
Yeah. And then what's your least favorite character to play against in My Hero?
Ooh, my least favorite character to play against.
Yeah, you can say Kirishima too. He's the odd one out right now, right? He's the elephant in the room.
Having played against 4 of them this past weekend, I think he's fine.
Says the Tokoyami player. I'm just pointing.
As a Tokoyami player, I actually hate playing against Mineta too. I just don't think it's fun. And I say this because my best friend is Kyle Wright, and who topped with Mineta at this event, and he's just not fun to play against. How is there anything fun about you shoving a card into my card pool on every turn, but when it's your turn, I don't get it back.
Yeah.
Like I don't get one back. Like I just that's not cool. And I hope that one day they print a character that just like a Cassie Cage character that like benefits from having all these foundations in her card pool. Like obviously Momo like hard stops that character. And that's what Kyle lost to, or like Jiro likes the stuff in her card pool. But like those characters like play kits that can get around that, and every other character in the format is like, this is awful. This sucks playing against. And that's kind of just how I feel. Also, I hate characters that have a design that just they just scream on their face, play throws. And because he says discard a momentum, set this thing speed to 0, and draw a card, you're like, I need to play things that give me momentum. What does that mean? You play throws. And so in the same kind of sense where like I'm not gonna like Tiger because Tiger has an ability on his face that says play throws, because if you hit me you get to draw a card. Like I just, that kind of game plan to me is just not fun. And like we couldn't have gotten a little more creative with something along that lines. And the most creative thing they got was, let's give him an attack that says he draws a card no matter what.
I was just about to say, I was really glad they didn't just give Tiger like an electric jolt, because they did it for Stain, they did it for Danke, you know. And I thought when I first read Tiger, because I read it before I saw all the cards, I thought for sure, I'm like, this character is going to have an attack that always deals 1 damage, and you get to always draw a card. And somebody was like, nope, but also yes.
He gets to play half hot ignition underwater, like.
Yeah. That's true. He already has access to. I forgot half.
Yeah.
Fuck that card.
That's what I'm saying. It's like it's the same thing with it's the same thing with Moneta. Yeah. It's just like, did you get a momentum? Did you hit me? Here's a perk. I'm not a 5-hander anymore, right? Yeah. And it's just, I just think it's such lame design space that we have to be like, what's the number one way to make this 5-hander not a 5-hander? Mm-hmm. Here you go. And it just like I know it's not the best way to play the character, but it's like where everybody gravitates to. So it's where you have to enter your like play space on how to play against it. I just think it's so lazy. So there you go. That's my rant of that.
No, you're saying what a lot of people are thinking for sure. You know, a lot of people are saying the same thing. And even me, who loves slow, grindy decks, like I love the idea where I just play my attack. I know it's going to deal 2 damage, whatever. I'm safe. I don't have to kill you now. I love like being able to be, I guess, that confident, right? Like not be stressed out about games. But when it comes to Mineta too, it's like he never has the decency to just kill you. Like
exactly.
Every other deck is like, my game plan is working. I'm stuffing your card pool, and you're gonna die, and the game can be over. Like you saw with Keenan, it's like you're kind of forced to be in it, like because you'll have a chance if. You know, if he just has 5 hand size problems and you actually keep pushing and you actually keep working, and it's like, sometimes I wish we could just go to game 2.
And like that's just it. It's like, and most of these decks, that, like especially what you're talking about, are like under the water symbol, right? And I think the water symbol, like again, like characters like Asui, heck, I think characters like Toru too, are just like, here's my game plan. I get to give pseudo speed to everything, but how do I kill you as like a Toru deck? Well, we play some really strong water cards like Cannon Blast and you know, Asui would just play a bunch of orange cards and draw a bunch of orange cards, and you can't block them all, right? So it's like those kind of game plans, and like using a really cool symbol like the water symbol is a really awesome way to play that deck and that symbol. Meanwhile, Meta 2 is like, but it's not a throw, so it doesn't, like, what if they just block it? And so nobody chooses to play a cool and fun design space deck like that. Like, I'm over here, like, play Amphibious Ambush Moneta, because you get that momentum even if they do block it. But then it's like you're playing a 6 difficulty attack and a 5-hander, and that's super sus because you could build terribly.
Right.
So, like, I get why people go to that design space. But again, and, like, his own attack even encourages the design space, right? Yep. Like, get my speed low and it becomes a throw. Like, it's just so lazy. And I wish people did cooler things.
People did top with the death version.
And that deck is a lot more respectable.
Yeah. However, I was almost going to play, like, right before I chose to cast, I was hovering Death Mineta because it has, like, some really cool spicy, like, you know, just, like, I pseudo-win right now style plays. But they all involve things like, I destroyed 4 of your foundations this turn. or
Oh, okay, yeah,
you know, like Gigantic Explosion Mineta 2 is actually like a crazy. I wouldn't say it's a high roll deck, but it's a roller coaster because it's like you're also losing some, and like the game gets reset to 0, and it can stall out really bad. But the main thing is that deck you have to draw 2 attacks for any of your attacks to do anything. You have to have 2 attacks for Detonation Launcher. You have to have 2 attacks for any of the combos. You know, pretty much the only thing that's kind of by itself is Stun Grenade, which is a 4 mid 4. You know, and is trying to draw you a second attack. So. Yeah, Mineta is probably everyone's least favorite character to play against, like, or at least the most common least favorite for sure.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, I think like he kind of also in that similar sense I was talking about, like you must be this tall to survive this ride. Mm-hmm. I think for even like control decks, I will say he's a good wall to run against, because if you play against like a very throw heavy Mineta deck and you want to play a 7-hander, like a defensive 7-hander, you better have some really good ways to stay alive in the long run. Things like gaining life from like super regions, or like excited for bloods. Things like Momo can gain a little bit, like gaining life over time, or having a ton of answers to throws. Like it kind of sets this other, you must be this tall to ride this ride, by being able to survive a long game against a guy that's constantly trying to do damage on every attack. So I think like if you want to play Momo, for sure you need to be slamming against Mineta 2s, because you should be able to beat a Mineta 2 deck very easily as Momo, not only because you counter the D build with your own character card, but she can inherently play a bunch of like anti-throw cards. So like he is I don't want to say a necessary Evo, because I don't think he's that necessary, but he is for sure a different deck testing method and a different kind of play style.
He's probably the only character that's really nailed down a throw style, so I respect it existing. You know, no one's really been able to pick up like the good simple throws, or and especially not make like a grindy throw deck. So, but we'll move on from Mineta too, because that's its own podcast. It's just we should just do it. Just have like the How Much We Hate Mineta 2 podcast. Get, like,
everybody bring your own. It's roast of this character podcast.
We'll get Lenoco to cosplay as Mineta 2, and then we'll just have guests come in like one after another and just roast Mineta 2.
Roast them. Love it.
All right. So, what's your favorite card in My Hero Academia specifically?
My favorite card is, man, after this weekend, it's almost Petty Squabble. That card's nuts. But in actuality, I'm going to go really lame, and it's very easy to explain. And it's actually going to be Tape.
Ooh.
Tape is my favorite card in My Hero.
Big Eraserhead hours.
Big Eraserhead hours, but it's not even just that, because I've also played a lot of Water under the My Hero format, and also Order. And so, like, it is the perfect defensive card. And then if you want to get real cheeky, you can use it offensively, because things like Tape Swing get a benefit if you change its zone. Or you can synergize it with cards like Natural Leader that gives speed to mid attacks. And so if there's ever, and it's not a kick, like, right, because you would just do it if it wasn't a kick. But if it's not a kick and you really need to give speed to something, you can do this really cheeky 2-card combo. And it's like, is it competitive? No. Like that combo. Tape as a card, though, very competitive, because mid blocks typically always take up the higher percentage of blocks in your deck, which says you're probably always going to be able to block this attack and take nothing from it. And I just think that's so incredibly smart. I think it's really good for cards like breaker blocks. So under Water, you have things like Ice Storm, which is very good. So it synergizes, and that's a mid block. It just directly synergizes with a card like that. I think it helps fix faults where you want to play some unique deck design of, hey, I don't have a lot of high blocks. Hey, I don't have a lot of mid blocks, or a lot of low blocks, but I do have a lot of mid blocks. So let's play Tape as a fora, because that is a conscious defensive deck design. I think you can easily do it in other symbols with things like Infinite Potential. You can just cram high blocks, and if you put a bunch of Infinite Potentials in your deck, you can choose this active defensive deck design. And then on top of that, plus Ultra being a card, it's incredibly good. Like, I know, especially in set 1 format, right? You're like, your opponent starts doing a tons of crazy stuff, and you're like, I'll make it a mid. And you're like, okay, here comes the plus Ultra block. Like, you know it's coming. And also, under Water, having access to things like Wall Cling It just helps. It's like double synergy, and then underwater you also get things like face shield. So it's just one of the best defensive pieces. But on top of just making it a mid, if it already is a mid, it's speed hate. So it's great.
Yeah.
I just think it's the most well-rounded card. It also blocks mids. So if you build one, you got a free block for the second one. It just,
Bro.
I think that is peak card design is a card like Tape.
One of my least favorite experiences is playing against Tape Kirishima 1 because he just picks it up and blocks with it itself.
Over and over again. Because it's a fun card. He gets to reuse them. I love that. That's so
manly
smart.
Passionate, loop it. Come on.
It shares a symbol with hard and jab, whatever. So
true.
even just in any deck, like I for a while in Void Eraserhead, who picks up a mid block whenever he wants, I was playing jabs in my deck just to reuse my tapes because they were that impactful in the deck defensively. So I think that card just all around is my favorite card, and it's so simple to just tell people. It's so simple.
Yeah, 4x Tape, 4x plus Ultra probably kept a lot of Giros out of top cuts in set 1.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely a big fan of that combo as well. People always talk about not playing any mids to avoid breaker blocks and like avoid all the most punishing blocks getting to full block your stuff, and Tape doesn't allow them to do that.
Yep, exactly.
Let's ask, this will probably be the last MHA related question, and you don't have to get super involved if you don't want to.
Sure.
Any easy bans or erratas you'd like to see in MHA in this current format? I know it's very early. We've only had one event. I think people calling for like bans, especially for like the Kirishima 2 thing, is very much a knee-jerk reaction from the last format, right? We're in a new format, and we saw they didn't go super far, even though there was a lot of them. But if you personally could just, for your own enjoyment, ban out a card, what would it be?
To ban a card?
Or errata. Or just like some card you would just touch, like, if it was like, this should obviously be moved.
Yeah, I mean, I think even after this weekend, I think people obviously have been talking about it, like, what do you do, what do you do, what do you do? And again, it's the first set. I think people are going to come into this next tournament and even just be like, oh, well, I've got the Kirishima killer, right? Well, I've got the Tokoyami killer. And, like, we're going to see a lot more of that. But I think people just aren't willing to take a lot of risks for the first tournament of a format. And so Kirishima, I believe you even talked about it on the weekend, was just like, Kirishima 2 is the epitome of, like, the floor for that deck is so high that you feel safe playing it offensively or defensively. He has a defensive ability on his face, and he is inherently offensive on his own ability, as well as readying those cards or playing new ones across both turns. Like, he is so safe. And I think part of that is we should probably limit that because of how much he can do aggressively. And I think in the same sense for Tokoyami. I think Tokoyami could easily not do -1 damage on every attack. I just think if you're going to commit to an aggressive character like that, just make him all or nothing, right? I think like he should just not have that -1 on his face and actually be a true 720 lifer, right? But because he has a -1 damage against certain decks, like Asui, as I played against on stream, they're just all for 4 or 5 damage, and you're allowed to eat 4 or 5 or 6 of those because they're so weak. And that's not, I didn't do anything. I got lucky, and my character says +1 or -1, right? Like that's something that you just don't need. Like, commit to the all-in-ness that Tokoyami has, and I think you can go with that. Kirishima 2, I think he could easily still be twice per turn, and he can have the cool response. I think he just needs to destroy ready foundations. I think if you told me I had a character card that said destroy 4 foundations, ready 4 foundations, +4 damage, draw 4 cards, I would tell you that's the most insane ability I've ever heard in my life.
Right.
That's what he does across one turn cycle. So he readies 4, draws 4, and gives 4 damage. So, like, that's a lot. And then he has also a defensive ability. So if he destroyed ready foundations, it makes his defensive game a little bit weaker. It makes his offensive game a little bit weaker. But I think he's just like a different version of Sato at that point. And I think that would be very fine.
What if, now this is going back to the actual card Deforester that he's pretty much based on and has 2 symbols with. What if after you destroy that card to do the rest of the enhance, it has to be that the top card of your discard pile is a non-foundation. So you have to have a face down attack or maybe not face down, but like Well, I guess it have to be for an attack, but you'd have to have face down attack or asset to really get the full value out of that. And that would, he doesn't really have a way to build it naturally is kind of the problem, I think. But you still get so many cards. Like, you can build Seizing face down now. You can, play Hardened Frenzy as a 4 of and, like, rely on jabs and things like that. So what do you think about that? Like, really making it like that DeForester style, and then you'll probably have to see higher attack counts and more aggressive builds rather than, like, the defensive... like the mid-range, I guess, is what we're seeing a lot of.
Yeah, I think it's also to, like, because he, like, I don't know. I think there's also a world where he can only destroy face-up foundations, right? Because that way, at least if you want to ready a card, you're turning a card with card text into a face down from hand, and even if it comes in ready. I think a lot of people have kind of verbally talked about that as well. I like the idea that, like, the card that you destroyed had to be something that would have been valuable in your stage. I like that because, like, I think the biggest thing I want to get across is, like, I don't feel like we should punish cards like Hardened Jab. I think that he just feels like he gets to abuse cards like that because not only is he readying all these cards, Jab also inherently readies a card, right? And it picks up a banked card that he does later. So I think what Kirishima 2 currently does, plus the power of Hardened Jab, feels like a lot. And it feels very unfair to play against because of how much it does. So I think somewhere on the character, I feel like, though, if you just kind of focus in on Kirishima 2, the character, we can avoid touching things like Hardened Jab, and you can still do cool defensive plays with Hardened Jab, like we talked about earlier, just like reusing defensive foundations, and that would punish those kind of decks if Jab got hit instead of Kirishima 2 himself. So I think that's kind of the biggest two. I think you could kind of evaluate in the format and see what would things change to, because there's always going to be the biggest bad guy, right? And so if you do that small kind of change to even both of those characters, what emerges back to the top? Do we go back to a Momo 1 format? Do we go back to an Asui format? Like, all of these things could happen, and just because of recency bias, those are some changes I think you could easily do and just, like, test it. And that's the cool thing. If there are erratas, you can always backtrack. You can always do another change. You can always keep trying and tweaking the format just a little bit. But I don't think that there's anything huge ban-worthy wise, I found, in the format. Aside from people just having, like, not a lot of fun against seizing the advantage. But again, because of characters like Kirishima 2 that already synergize with Jab so much, he already gets inherent bonuses with playing cards like Seizing the Advantage. Whereas I think cards like Seizing the Advantage, or the card that it's kind of based off of with Hunt for Spiders and Dragons, they have a place in the format, and they have cards that counter them. I played Chivalrous Competitor and Struggling with Studies, which said I got to keep my good foundations because I flipped these bad ones instead. And so, like, that was a very easy perk of me running a Chaos deck into this format. And, like, I don't know if seizing is necessarily the problem. I just think the character feels too safe and can reuse them, and then it becomes an issue, right? So that's kind of where I would start.
I like the Ready Foundation one a lot because it changes the least about how you'd have to make the deck, but it still allows him to get his damage pump and to get, like, card selection. You still get to do celebrity status plays and stuff like that. You're just not, like, overwhelming people with the additional resources that your attack lineup's already giving you too. So
exactly,
I definitely like that one. So as it comes down to Universus, we only got a couple questions left. Do you have any UVS related regrets? Are there any characters that you wish you had played before they rotated? Is there, like, one moment where you're like, man, I should have just played this one busted deck at this tournament instead of what I did play? You know, any event you might have missed out on. It could be anything.
I definitely regret not being able to travel to a lot of the big ones. So, like, I won my character card in 2018, and after that, I didn't really get to travel to both majors in the year. I missed out on 2 Worlds in a row. I missed out on Worlds 2019 and Worlds 2020 just because,
could have,
like,
put Mark Tyner in check for us.
Yeah, exactly. Should have been able to put Mark Tyner in check. Which is funny because, like I was very much, like, playtesting with him at that time, like, against him and deck teching during that era. But I wasn't a player. I wasn't a name in the format because I just didn't get to travel to those events. And the one time that I did, which was Nationals of 2019, I didn't perform like I'd had the year before. I just didn't do well. I played Lord Raptor that year and just like had a bad meta read, and I didn't put good things in my deck to deal with the other things in the deck. And it was UU meta, and it felt very weird, and so it just wasn't my time.
You
like,
ran
even
it back
in
at that
teams.
one standard event with Lord Raptor, though.
I did the online COVID one, and I did get to like redeem myself playing Lord Raptor in that event. And once again, Mark Tyner won that event as well. So like it was very much that was his era and his time to shine. And like there's nothing wrong with that, but like I think missing out on the majors is a really big deal because it's not even about playing the game; it's seeing the people, and that's where everybody goes. And I really did miss that for 2 years in a row, which was very like sad for me and what I regret. Aside from that, the Omaha PTC before COVID, I played Spike 1, and I did well. I played against Shane in top cuts at top 8, I want to say.
Was he playing Goro?
No, he played Tim Keefe 2.
Okay.
It was during the Tim Keefe 2 era. I played Spike 1, who I loved that deck at the time. And I was the biggest dumbass I've ever known because I didn't mainboard Bang. I actually just didn't mainboard Bang.
Yeah.
And it was the stupidest decision, I think, deck building wise, I think I had ever made. Because I think if I had mainboarded a Bang, it would have been it would have been good for me in that matchup. And I'll be honest, not only did I not mainboard Bang, I didn't sideboard Bang either. And it was the dumbest deck decision I think I've ever made competitively. And I would never want to do that again. So I tell myself that every time.
The card is cranked, and it only disappeared for a little bit because people were so high up on protecting the protector. Because it protected you from literally everything, pretty much. So it protected you from everything except, like, add a foundation to your card pool or something. And so, yeah, that's definitely a big one.
So that was probably the biggest regret. I think aside from that, like, I definitely played who I wanted to play. I definitely built what I wanted to build. I went to as many events as I could that I wanted to go to. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the biggest regrets, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, and we saw all the sappy posts from everybody on Facebook. Like, when it comes to going to events, everyone's just so happy to be there and see each other. And, you know, we had the overflowing of emotions because this was the first really big one. Like, this was the first huge one after COVID. So I was so happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, same, exactly. Even if I didn't do well, like, I was just 100%. Like, that's why I didn't play in the standard event on Friday. I was just so happy to be spending time with people. Like, I stress-free day for me. I just got to hang out with old and familiar faces, and like I got to go get lunch, and I didn't have to sit in this room and play standard like forever. And so, like, I had a great time on Friday, and then I played a good tournament on Saturday, carried it over into Sunday, and again, just like the fans, the people that love the game, all these new faces as well because of how much this game has grown because of things like My Hero. It's just it warms your heart for sure, and it's you know, when even walking up on that stage and just like looking out and being like not only seeing the faces of people that do support me because they've known me for so many years now playing this game, but all the new people as well that have approached me and messaged me and like recognize me as like a real player now because I'm not as washed up as I used to be, that's for sure.
Hey, you topped most of the events you participated, right? I think you only played in 3 or 4 over the year and topped at least half the ones you entered, right?
For My Hero, I played in one regional, and it was at Las Vegas, and I hit the top 32. I think I got 28th. So I was on the higher end of the bracket, but it was the top 16, so like I didn't get to like play playoff. I did win the team side event though. Well, we ID'd at the end because we just were so hungry that we just wanted to go eat. So that was fun for sure. And aside from that, I played in one online provisional, and it was very much a win and in situation, and I didn't get that. So, gotcha. But when it's those online tournaments, you're not really seeing those faces and playing in that kind of thing. But I'd only played in 2 My Hero events before playing into this nationals. So
you just got that skill waiting to be unlocked, right?
Yeah, it was a slow build. Well, it was a slow for sure.
And were you playing a Eraserhead in those events?
I played a Eraserhead in both of those events. Yes.
So there you go. It's the tournament fatigue that you gotta watch out for with the Eraserhead. So
it's very hard for sure. Very hard.
So I got a lot of the same questions, but for Universus, just because that's where you did start with the game. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who really are curious about Universus and are super interested in stuff like that. And I think Standard Sunset only, proved more of that is on the way. So let me get your favorite UVS character.
Oh my gosh.
There is so many. There's actually so many.
I'm going to pick one that is not in Standard anymore, and it's for two reasons. One, it's the character that I played in that first competitive event that we talked about a long ago, and it's Mega Man 2. And the reason why I want to talk about this character is because there's very much a My Hero kind of equivalent right now, and I do really love playing her because of it. It reminds me of the days that I played Mega Man 2. Mega Man, and the other reason why I love him so much is that my character card in Standard is the same life total and hand size as this character. So he's a 628. He has Order, Good, and Void. He has Void. And he says once per turn, after response once per turn, after you play an attack, you can give it either Stun 2, Powerful 2, or Breaker 2, as long as it doesn't already have that keyword. So it's very Momo 2. Momo 2 is very similar to this design space. And then his other ability was just enhanced twice per turn. You could commit a foundation, and this attack would get +1 damage for each keyword it has.
Was it really only twice per turn?
Yeah, it was definitely only twice per turn.
Rough. They did start printing some keyword spaghetti, though. There was some 5 keyword attacks.
So I just love that character because just on that first ability was really the bread and butter of it. The damage pump was kind of whatever. But the bread and butter of it is you could play an attack and it could turn into a finisher because it had powerful. It could turn into a prime lead attack because you gave it stun to set up for your other things. Or you could play an attack on the block defensively and give it breaker that it normally wouldn't. So you just got to play so many generic attacks that maybe did one thing and then the character turned it into something else. And I just loved that kind of play style, and I played a lot of reversals, so you could stun them on their turn. I played very strong block attacks, so that you could block and breaker them while also playing other breakers in your deck, so you could double up on breakers in your turn. I played a lot of keyword manipulation cards, things like Key-In and I forgot what his was called, weapons something.
Hanya?
I can't remember.
Hanya was a big one.
I did play Hanya because I was already playing a bunch of weapons. But yeah, so I played a bunch of weapons. And then weapons upgrade, thank you. Yeah. Sorry, weapons upgrade, which was Mega Man's foundation. And it just enhanced keyword ratings, so you got to stun them more, powerful them more, breaker them more. Key-In gave things more stun. Hanya readied and made your opponent's blocks harder and made your attacks easier to play. It was a really cool synergistic deck. And I got third place with it at Nationals, and then by the time we kind of hit the new era of when we were playing competitively for Bebop, a lot of the Mega Man stuff just kind of cycled out, and it just wasn't at the same kind of power level. So I loved the character. It's so cool to see a similar version of him in My Hero, and I've definitely had a lot of fun playing and testing around with Momo 2 decks because I've just loved that playstyle.
It's kind of funny, one of the first PTCs, maybe the first PTC I ever traveled for, I played Mega Man 2, and I made a very bad deck, but it had a lot of really cool plays. But it was tri-symbol, and I think one of the most underrated things about that character is he's one of the only characters where you could have a powerful throw. They never let you mix the powerful keyword with throws. And, that kind of went away a little bit. It's still, very hard to do. They still try to play around it a bit. Kotal Khan gives a non-powerful attack throw because of that. Yep. And, Nomu even says non-throw to avoid just easy damage. But when you gave Death Valley Faceplant Powerful 2 with, 3 momentum, people got pissed.
My go-to was Spinning Pile Driver. I used that as, which was a Street Fighter card. It was selective flip, and then it was just an easy dump for my momentum. So I did a lot of that. What was the other one? Oh, and Good. I remember I did it on
Clark's Throw. Did you ever play it with Clark's Throw?
Well, I'm talking about like late in a different format. Okay. No, it was the Lily Throw, the one that got -1 difficulty for each card in your opponent's card pool.
Oh, you played Phantom Driver? That's nasty.
Because you could
Rain Flush.
You could gateway shuffle it.
Oh, that too. It's rain.
Yeah. So you gave it powerful, and you could gateway shuffle it because it was a weapon or something. I couldn't remember. I remember doing that.
A lot of crazy stuff you could do with that character, actually. So that's really interesting. I actually really love that answer. I'll be honest, it's not the one I expected, but that character is very cool.
You think I was going to pick Zhanghua or something? I should have picked my character card. I messed up. I should have picked my...
If I had to guess, I would have thought it would be something like a Twinkle Murdoch-esque.
No, I'm not
with
that
a cancel
lame.
on face.
Ew.
Something with a cancel on face. Like, I like Twinkle's cancel game. I don't really care for like the momentum stuffing gimmick, so... But like once per game, just cancel something. I'm down for.
I'm big on the Living Pendulum kind of game plan though. Okay. So like that's my favorite cancel card. Yeah.
So then, what's your favorite UVS card? Which again, there's so many to pick from, but you can pick a retro, legacy, standard, whatever.
I won't pick Prepare to Fight because obviously I picked that earlier.
Oh wait, I already asked this one. That's true.
No. You asked my favorite card in all of card games.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it lines up.
So I'm gonna pick a Universus favorite card because I can do that. It shouldn't be that hard. I'll pick a more recent one too. I'm gonna pick Bamboo Blind Slice. I think attack negation basically is the way to describe it, or attack aborting, getting rid of your opponent's attacks. I think is so strong, and like Bamboo Blind Slice itself doesn't. It's not an easy one to pull off, right? Like you have to either play it as a reversal, so there's an extra card in your pool, or you have to play a character that shoves a bunch of things in your card pool, and you have to have a momentum, right? So it's a hard one to pull off, but the reward is so good, and even if you play it as a regular attack on your turn, it doesn't feel like you sacrificed a lot, right? So I love reversals as a game plan. I think it's very strong defense. And I do love the stun kind of game plan, so I'm very much going to pick a card like that. So I'd probably pick Bamboo Blind Slice.
And it's definitely one of the best cards you can play in Barrett Bryant, the character card.
Yeah, it is.
It is 100% one of the best reversals to jam in that deck. So that's your favorite character and your favorite card. Do you have a favorite game of UVS that you've ever played? Is there one that sticks out as just your favoriteest of all time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody's, they have that one they'll never forget, whether they win or lose. Mine is actually a loss. It's my favorite game. It's a loss. And it was 2018 Nationals, so the year that I won, but it was in teams finals. It was a good year for me because I was in finals for teams that we played on Sunday, and it was me, Jacob Johnson, and Byron Villata. I can't ever never pronounce his last name. But Omaha players, shout outs to them. We made it to finals and teams, and it was so exciting. I was so excited to have the opportunity to almost build an asset with two very good friends of mine, and we had to beat in finals. We had to play against Ben Shoemaker, Phil Birch, and Dave Wagner, who eventually went on to create Blood, Sweat, and Beers. A fantastic card, by the way. They did such a good job with that card. But so we were the team that they had to fight for to get that card. We put JJ in the mirror match. We won the die roll. So we got to pair. We basically opted for a throwaway, which is a very unique way to do teams pairings. We put Byron into Phil Birch's Vega because we didn't think any of our decks could beat it, so we just fed one to the Wolves, basically. And then we made them pick their matchups, and we thought we were favored in both of them. So we just let them kind of decide. They decided to put the Liu Kang mirror into each other, so Jacob played against Ben Shoemaker's Liu Kang deck, and we wanted that because Jacob played against Liu Kang's the entire tournament, and our Liu Kang deck was meant to beat other Liu Kang decks, and then also make it where we didn't have to play against any. Mm-hmm. And then me playing Cassie Cage, I had to play against Dave Wagner's Woodman, and that is the match. Woodman.
This is right when I actually took a break. I had no clue what.
Not Woodman. I'm so sorry. Sniper Joe. I'm so sorry. Sniper Joe.
I was about to say.
they look similar to me in their faces. And sorry, you're right. Sniper Joe.
Same IP. Big Shield.
That's
energy.
he was playing Woodman's Leaf Shield.
Yeah, Woodman's Leaf Shield is the all-star in that deck, 1,000%.
Long story short, for the match, we played a 4-hour-long match.
Wow.
Yes, 4 hours, and this
untimed rounds, fellas.
Untimed rounds, bright and early in the morning. Phil Birch and Byron and Jacob and Ben were done so quickly with their matches that Phil and Ben left to go watch the soccer game that was in town in Atlanta at the time. They left for the soccer game, came back, and we were still playing. I'm not kidding you.
That's so Ben Shoemaker.
I lose the die roll, lose game 1 in a regular fashion. I don't really remember it. Game 2, I just bop them. Like on turn 3. It's kind of what my deck was like meant to do. And then game 3 was the longest game of my life. I was at some point in the game, like I knew I had to go to deadlock, and I would only survive if he didn't find his deadlock threats, which he did because of things like missile launcher. I had very good defensive cards, things like Shadow Inheritance that said I could block forever at some point. But it was very much like I either started to be the aggressor first, and I either broke the wall by finding literally the perfect cards that I could, or I wait till he attacks me with a hand of all 7 attacks, basically, and I kind of half went in. And like I played cards like Akimbo and Nutcracker, which replenished my hands. I did not check very well on that turn. I tried to play super tight defense, but he ended up seeing like 3 or 4 deadlock enhanced attacks, things like Woodman's Leaf Shield, things like missile launcher, and it came down to like the 4th or 5th attack in his hand, and that combined with Sniper Joe's being able to ready himself, and so he could tap his face, and if I half blocked it, he got or whatever it was, and it was like he added one to all my block. Yeah, and he like added a bunch to these block mods already because of his character, and so like it directly kind of interfaced with my Shadow Inheritance kind of defensive plays. It was one of the best matches of Universus I've ever played. I learned so much. I have so much respect for Dave Wagner as a player because of how calculated and how methodical that entire match was, and I lost. In 4 hours it took me that to lose, and I was so empowered by the loss, and all of my people, all the people in singles were waiting on me because I had also top 16 in singles, so they waited 4 hours for me to finish my match, and then I turned it around and I won the whole thing in singles. So
took that anime power up.
Yeah, so not only was it a good comeback story for me, but it was very much like, I didn't let it get to me, and I showed that there was a reason that I was in that team's finals, and then even like put it up in that singles finals as well. So incredibly good match, my favorite of all time. Dave and I still joke about it to this day because like he played the better game for sure, and I just had to turn it around and kind of still prove myself in singles. So that was for sure my favorite one of all time.
Love that. Funny enough, my favorite game of UVS involves me getting Dave Wagner to sign a copy of his card afterwards, but that is a story for a different time. This is your interview, my friend. And with that being said, do you have a favorite UVS player? I
do, yeah. My favorite player is probably Jeremy Ray.
Okay. Sucking up to Jasco just a little bit. I get you.
No. So when I got into playing this game, again, I started gravitating towards characters like Mega Man 2. And my mentor that taught me the game, Mason Johnson, he gravitated me towards a deck like Mega Man 2 and catering into like a play style and card choices that Jeremy Ray had put in a Mega Man 2 deck not so long ago in some major tournament or something like that, and had piloted well and did very good things with that deck. So with that information, I reached out to him a lot, and I messaged him because I was a new kid, but like I was the Universus community is so open to players and like, messaging people and like giving feedback, and he was right there to like guide me. He hasn't touched that character in forever, and like when I first met him, I got to meet my Universus idol, my favorite Universus player. He was super excited to meet me. He gave me 4 copies of Partners in Crime Fighting, which I played in the deck, but I had to borrow Mason's because I never owned a champ card in my life, and it was his card. And it was so cool to like meet your like idol, and like I play like him a lot in like defensive methodical choices. And I even got to play against him in the nationals of the year after that I won. I had to beat Jeremy Ray in top 4 when he played Jackie Briggs on the year that I won my champ card. And it was very much just like this story of like, I look up to him as a player. He's like my grandfather of Universus, Mason being my father, even though I'm older than him, but he taught me the game. But J Ray very much like gave me the wisdom to play, is the best way I describe it. And so I look up to him a lot as a player. He has a bunch of trophied gear, and now he works for the company of the game that I love so much. So it's like full circle. I love the guy. I got to hang out with him a ton at this past nationals. Again, even after I won, he's like, dude, I'm so proud of you. And like that means a lot to me because he's such an influential person of me and my Universus career. There's a reason he is one of the ghosts and the shadows in my champ cards background. Really awesome guy, and for sure, and will almost always be my favorite player because of how much he's impacted me, for sure.
That's awesome, man. That's such a great story. Yeah, we're very lucky in this community that the people who are really good at the game are so anxious, I would say, to help other people's improve. Like they really want to see the community players grow and not just like hoard championships for themselves and like hoard secret tech and things like that. So an absolutely heartwarming story. I do have to ask this though. I did have to put this one on here. Do you have a favorite UVS content creator? Now you can say anybody. You can say anybody. You don't have
like
to
myself,
say.
even though I don't make content anymore.
You actually could say yourself.
No, I won't do that.
Of all the cop-out answers, that would be the best cop-out answer.
That is the best one. Man, I'll be very honest with you, Sam. I don't watch a lot of Universus content. I don't listen to a lot of Universus content.
No,
but
there's a surprising amount out there, I'll say, considering
there
we think
is
of our games.
So much. I can tell you right now, based off of winning this tournament and how many people have reached out to me on the podcasts and stuff that I didn't even know existed, there are a lot of them. And I think that's awesome because as someone who has been on multiple Universus content creators platforms themselves, like I was on TCG University, I was on the Guile treatment,
Universus Studios.
I've been on. I made my own after all those kind of withered away, and then I've been on the Unfun Stuff's podcast and YouTube channel a few times. I've been on Andrew Holder's videos a couple of times. You know, even to all being right here with you, right? Like there are so many, and it's all good too. It's all quality stuff. I just don't have the time of day. I don't have the time to listen to all that stuff. But I think my favorite content creator, I'm going to pick a person. I'm not going to pick their channel because they kind of like me have kind of moved around quite a bit. I'm actually probably going to have to go with Chris Smith. And then asterisk, I'm going to write Rob Snyder because I think some of my best content creating years, not as me doing it myself, but really having a lot of respect for the one that they did was the Guile treatment that Rockford CCG was in charge of. And I just thought it was, and like, they added me onto their cast, and I did it with them for a year and a half, and it was the most fun parts of my week, going on and hopping on Skype because they use Skype like madmen, and chatting. That's
just the era of the internet we were in. Man.
It wasn't even that. Discord was a thing, and they still use Skype. Chris Smith was just a grandfather. He's a freaking old man over there. Didn't know how to use anything else. But he was my. Okay.
I was just going to say, when the Chamber TCG told me it was going to be a Zoom call, I was just like, oh shit, I got to get a Zoomer app on my computer. I was like, damn. Yeah. Luckily, it's easy enough to set up,
so Chris Smith's starting off over there. Now Chris Smith is one of the co-hosts of Universus Academy. Big shout-outs for them if you want to go check them out. With other great card players like Matt Childress are also a part of that channel. I didn't want to shout out that channel as a whole because I haven't been a part of it or really worked with them yet. But Chris Smith, he is one of the most kind and warm-hearted people I think you can ever meet in this card game, in the community, and let alone really knows how to win the people over with his personality, and still has some really good takes. He topped this past event. He made it to top 8. I get to go to Worlds with Chris Smith. Like, not only because I have a lot of respect for him as a person, but also as a content creator. He knows how to read the room. He knows what to talk about, but he also, like, can have some fun with it and, crack some jokes. And he's a really cool dude. Again, Asterix on there as well, with Rob Snyder. Not as super prevalent in the content creating game ever since that it kind of like got the Guile treatment has kind of ended. But always a blast to hang out with. One of the funniest guys I know. And I do miss them. But they will for sure probably always become some of my favorite content creators for Universus.
Awesome, yeah. It was a crazy time when the Guile treatment was coming out. That was the thing that pretty much the whole community was waiting for. Like, we maybe got a Top Deck Hero stream every now and then, but the Guile treatment was like our one consistent content creation for pretty much a solid year, I think, before everyone else started going, hey, we should jump in on this.
I joined in pretty much after about right before a year of how long it had been going on, and then I was still with them for another year and a half. Like, it was, it went the distance all the way basically until the end of Standard, essentially. And after that, it was just, real life happens, things cycle out, and then that was when I made my own YouTube channel to kind of just to scratch that content creation itch. But it was never the same kind of level that Chris Smith had always done at his own show, and it was fantastic for sure.
Yeah, and I will say a lot of us content creators don't get time to watch, because anytime we could be spending watching a tier list, we're probably making our own tier list video or our own podcast. And then on top of that, we do talk a lot, right? Like, especially if you're an Unfun Stuff sponsored person, or you're in the chats, or you're in the podcast, you're there with a lot of the content creators, so you're getting a lot of their takes and a lot of, like, we love to talk about, like, stuff we're gonna do. So, that is very fair. For me, I try to keep up with all the podcasts for people I don't really talk to a lot. But, like, I'm gonna be talking to Andrew Holder about whatever video he's doing, right? So
for sure.
So I have a bonus question. Here's one that wasn't on the list. I need you to tell me the name of all your cats, because we've seen some cats run around in the background. We've seen some tails coming across the screen here. You don't gotta disturb them, but I need to know their names.
She's right here. So it's just the one. This is my baby girl.
Okay.
So this is Mochi, like the ice cream.
Colors.
She's very pretty, but I called her. So not only is she Mochi because I think it's cute, but all of her paws are white. And so it's like, if you know anything about Japanese mochi, when they make it, they have to pad the rice, and everybody that makes mochi, their hands get all white from padding all the rice shelling and stuff like that. So her name's Mochi. She turned 2 in October, and I'm very single, I guess, and so she gets all my money, is how I describe it. So,
it's a beautiful
so
cat.
Yeah, that's my cat. She lives here with me in my apartment. So.
I 100% thought it was 2 different colored cats, because I would see, like, the tail go by, and then I would see, like, the white paws jump off. So
yeah, she runs around a lot. She's full of energy. I love her to death. She's super kind, super nice, and she snuggles up. She sat on my lap for most of this. So, and then you saw her head peek up once. So, like, love her to death.
Always gotta get the cats on orange card, blue card. I love cats. I was. All right, so this is another tangent. We got one more after this, but I was sitting outside. I think it was after the event, and, like, me and Jacob Monsieur were just, like, venting about certain stuff in our life. His was mostly tournament related, but, like, somehow we got onto the subject of, like, an old flame of mine who, like, lived in England and became long distance, and, like, I was supposed to go to a UK event for UFS, and, like, it didn't work out. And, like, the last thing I said in the conversation was, the thing I was most sad about was not getting to meet her cat, because her cat was super cool. And Jacob Monsieur just laughed so hard, and he's like, that's the most Sam Tate shit you've ever said.
No, I love it. Definitely a fan of the pets. Love meeting everybody's pets. Animals naturally really like me, but I'm down to pet anybody's pet for sure.
So I got one more question for you here, and it's the one that's probably on everyone's mind. I know it's on mine. How excited are you for Worlds?
Man, I'm super excited. I'm super excited for one, because this is the first time they've ever done, like, an invitational type thing, right? So I'm super excited to see how big they go. I think there's, people are like, oh, it might just, here's 32 people they invited, and they're just going to play a 32-person tournament. And it could be as small as that to as big of a show that they want to make it to help celebrate the first, in my opinion, successful year of competitive My Hero, right? Whether it's you got an invite from going to nationals, whether you got a bunch of points from the regional license exams and stuff like that, whether you got the MVP invite and stuff like that. I think it's this big celebration of the competitive year. And yeah, the whole point is that no matter how well you do at Worlds, you're walking away with something in your pocket. I think that's so cool. And again, it's as big as they wanted to make it. And so I think the excitement for me comes from how big are they going to make it? How much of a show are they going to make it? And I think that's where the excitement comes from, specifically on like what kind of deck am I going to play or something like that. I think the hardest part is getting invited, and now that I get to go, I've torn apart all my decks. Whether we're waiting for them to make some sort of announcement in the meta shift or whatever they decide at the end of this nationals season, I think I just want to play something fun, not like bad. I don't want to play a bad deck, but like I think I want to play something really fun that it can like. Your opponent's going to sit across the table from it and be like, this is a cool deck. Whether they win or lose, this is a cool deck. Like, that's what I want to... So, like, I'm poking around with some Nezu stuff right now. Not that I think he's super competitive, but again, can be a cool deck. So, poking around with that. Momo 2. I would love to kind of address some Momo 2 action just to kind of see how far I can go with that. We maybe have the DLC characters coming out. I know a lot of those are people are getting their hands on those coming soon. Hopefully that means they're legal for Worlds, because that would be like another meta change shift up. I think any of those characters could be a fun deck to bring, but not necessarily like hyper competitive. So I haven't really decided what I'm going to play. Obviously we have a whole national circuit to finish until we decide our 32 people. But I do kind of hope we can have a conversation too among the 32 of us to be like, hey, nobody play this busted character. Let's bring something fun, Ooh,
it'd be a sick idea is if you let all 32 players ban one character and you just call like a third of the playable... I don't know how many playable characters are in the game, but I bet it's over 60. Actually, I can just look on UVS. I have to know because I love this.
There's so many. I think we've hit over 100 characters that you can pick.
Yeah, My Hero Academia character, and there's 4 DLCs that aren't in. We're at 81. So, like, let them all just ban one.
Yeah, so I think that's super exciting to think about. I think it's a really cool way where they could integrate even like a different way to play competitively. I know. I can't remember who I was talking to, but they had the idea of like doing like a conquest format, which is like every player has to bring 3 decks, and when you sit across the table from your opponent, they got to ban one. They don't have to play against that one, and you had to win a game with both of them.
Yeah, you have to retire 2 out of 3 decks.
Yes. Yeah. Which I do know some competitive card games do that kind of format.
A lot of digital ones do that.
Digital ones,
yeah. A lot of digital formats are like that to keep it interesting for viewers. The only thing I can say is please let's not do like the halfway conquest where you like ban one and then pick one and then the other one effectively does nothing because you play best 2 out of 3 with just the one deck, which we did with the retro event. It was really cool, but like not being a true conquest format made it just seem really weird by the end of it. So
so I think that's a really cool way to do it. I think there's a really cool way that they could do side events where they just make us all play draft. I think that's really cool.
I am not a limited guy, so
I'm not saying like that be what we're playing for the prize pool for, but I'm saying like you got 32 of us that are all coming out for this event, right? Are we going to do this in one day? Probably, if you make it. So if you wanted to stretch it out for 2 days or something, like do something cool on day 1, do something real on day 2. I think that cool thing could be real competitive, like draft, right?
Draft for seeding, I'm down.
Oh, that'd be super cool. Yeah, because seeding matters about going first or second. Like people they're not gonna rarity draft, man. They're gonna play. Like, so I think that's really cool if you wanted to do something like that. Especially because we're gonna have that perfect rounded number of a real like tournament structure of having exactly 32 people. I think there's a really cool idea where they could do a play-in on day one to determine seeding? Because I think that's one of the biggest questions that people have, are like, how do you determine seeding? Like, what is the seeding for the person that is going in with the highest amount of RLE points versus the guy that won a nationals, right? Like, so like, how do you determine that seeding choice? So I think like if they did a play-in stage, which is like they put us in pod, like I'm thinking like League of Legends, kind of like where they put us in like pods, and you have to play each of your opponent within the pod to determine a record, and then you end up essentially with like your top 4 people that get 1, 2, 3, and 4 in their seedings, and then they end up on each corner of the bracket, right? So that's how they get their perk.
I love that. No matter what format that is.
So, like, who knows how they're going to do it? Which, that, I think, is why I'm so excited. Regardless of how much I win, regardless of what I decide to play, as big of a show as they're going to make it, that's what I'm excited for.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of details we're still waiting on, but the one thing you know for sure is this man is going to be there. And at this point, Barrett, I would like to give you... We've been at this for over an hour and a half now. So thank you guys for joining us here in the chat. You know, we wouldn't be here without you. Thank you if you're watching on YouTube and want to drop a like, share, subscribe, etc. But I want to ask you, Barry, do you have any shout-outs? Do you have anyone you got to call out, anyone you want to put the spotlight on before we take it away?
I'm really bad at doing these shout-outs because I always forget people. I already did it once with Levi at the event, and then I had to do it again at the Unfun podcast. So it's like, so I'm going to do my best to try and lump everybody in, even if I don't say specific names. First of all, a huge shout out to Sam Tate. Thank you so much for having me, man. I've never actually been able to be on this show for you, and I had a ton of fun. I would love to cast with you one day. I think that would be a ton of fun. I know you and Levi got the long hair going on, but I could join that club too. You know,
we gotta get Cam to grow it out. If we convince Cam to grow it out, it's over.
It is over. So first of all, again, thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. Huge shout outs to the people that I've been deck teching and playtesting with. That is for the majority of the Unfun Stuff team: Christopher Bromley, Tamron Cardwell, Phil Birch, Andrew Holder, Sam. You've been there. You've seen me play this deck for a couple months now. All these people, Jose, the deck teching with all these people and playing against them, getting reps in, preparing me for the success that I had. 100% sure. Along that lines, my best friend Kyle Wright, who also did incredibly well this past weekend. He is my best friend and the guy that I stay up at 4 a.m. playing games with on Tabletop Simulator. And I did a lot of this to try and help him become a better player. But he also makes me a better player for sure as well. And he will always be my best friend. Huge shout out to everybody that I played against in the tournament. You were all a part of the journey, whether you won against me, Jesse Cervini, or you lost against me. I hope you might have learned something. I hope you aren't afraid to say hi to me. I love all the interactions that we make along the day. I didn't play against a single person that had a bad attitude all weekend, and I think that speaks volumes of the community that we have. A huge shout out to Legendary Wolf Games. They are my sponsor. I got to wear the Wolf jersey all weekend, and I love them to death. They kept me a part of the sponsorship, even though I don't live in Omaha anymore, as an honorary Omaha player. Shout out to my interns under that, which are going to be CJ Wolf as well as Axel Basinger, who topped this event, and I'm so incredibly proud of him. He got ninth place in Swiss playing Ojiro 2, and I'm so happy for them. I know he didn't make the run, but he is coming back this weekend, so watch out, everybody, if you're going to play against my buddy Axel, because he wants that invite to Worlds to come and join me.
His match was one of the hypest, right? It was at the end. We talked about it being a win-in, and I think hilariously in retrospect, they were high enough up they could have actually ID'd in, but I'm kind of glad they didn't, if only because we got such a dope match from Ojiro 2.
Yeah. It was on stream too. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. But yeah, he won it and then got 9th seeding, which is so awesome. Again, I couldn't be so more proud of that guy. He's come a long way for sure. Man, see, I'm already forgetting people. In that line, my local Kansas City playgroup guys, I love them to death. There's not a lot of us, but man, we are strong together. Absolutely. The Omaha crew comes down and we give the same love, vice versa. We drive up to Omaha and we play some games with them as well. Man.
Parents, mom, dad, we gotta shout out.
No, forget it. I did that in person. I don't need to do that again. I want to say those are my biggest ones for sure. I wouldn't be here without people like Jacob Johnson, Mason Johnson, and Jeremy Ray, people on my character cards. And first of all, Jasco Games. I think the judge staff did an incredibly good job that weekend. Huge shout outs to them. Carta Magica for hosting it or running it, even though Jasco was there. Jasco staff that was there holding side events. Huge shout out to them. They're also good friends of mine. So, I mean, of course, I love them to death. And then the community. I'd said this on the live stream as well, but we have the best community in the entire world. And that's including all the new people that are joining in with us. And we would not have so much love and passion for the game without this, or in that sense, without those people. I'm one of those people. Sam's one of those people. We care so much, and because of that, we care about each other, and it just creates the best environment. If you've never been to an in-person event, you've gotta go. Not just because of how well or not well you might do, but just to meet the faces of this game, and that is where you fall in love with it.
Absolutely. I could not have said it better myself. Yeah, it's a different animal once you travel, for sure, 100%. But thank you once again, Barrett, for joining me on this podcast. I know you've been real busy this weekend. Congratulations once again. Oh, there's the cat, Mochi. Say hi to Mochi, or say goodbye, I guess, Mochi. I am also terrible at outros, so I'm just going to thank everyone for watching this once again. And I guess we'll see you guys for online nets. Good luck to everyone who's going to be competing. Hopefully, whoever's casting is going to be having a ton of fun. I assume Tam is going to be on the cast again. I don't know what the team is going to be, but I'm excited to see who's doing that. And yeah, we'll see you guys this